How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Friday night. We're getting into Phasmophobia Part 2, The Fear of Ghosts, Pop Culture Entertainment. I'm Kenton J. Moore, and
I'm Jason Hewlett.
yeah, I guess I should have said with JC. I'm still practicing. I'm learning this intro.
You're doing good.
I'm learning this intro. So yeah, last week we talked a lot about the history and the prevalence and why we're afraid of ghosts. And this week we get to talk about how much we're obsessed with them. So let's get into ghosts in pop culture. Jason, tell me, what is your favorite ghost movie?
My favorite ghost movie. Jesus. Well, because there's lots, right? Like you could say Ghostbusters, which is sort of a humorous spin on it. But
who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters. But Dan Aykroyd is a hardcore enthusiast when it comes to all things paranormal. So he, in a way, brought in some legitimate stuff into what is obviously a fantasy horror comedy kind of thing. You could say Ghost Watch, which is a British episode, which was actually like the modern day equivalent of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast. Like the BBC put this on. They marketed it weeks in advance saying the BBC was going to do an investigation into an alleged haunting. And it brought in like respected legitimate BBC news personalities. But it was all fake. Right. But it freaked people out. My buddy Peter, who I mentioned in the first episode, remembers watching it on that Halloween night in like 1992 and people losing their minds thinking that this was real. So that's a good one. Or there's also like the first Conjuring movie, which I think in a lot of regards, even though it was a fictionalized account of one of the Warrens cases, which you could argue were all fictional anyways, but the way that they presented the investigation was really good and very, very indicative of what people do in the field. So, and that movie is legitimately terrifying. Watching that in an audience on opening weekend was one of the best theatrical experiences I had because people were screaming and just scared shitless.
Just broken, hey?
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny. I guess we should have kind of defined movie, because I suppose, there's ghost fun, there's ghost adventure, there's ghost horror. It's just this, like Western media has this obsession with ghosts. Do you know the hardest thing when I was doing all of my research and everything on Phasmophobia for last week's episode? Was every Google search, I had to sift through pages and pages and pages about the game Phasmophobia before I could find any legitimate and quantifiable information, right?
I've played that game. It's hard.
I've never played it, but from what I've seen, God damn, that was terrifying.
It definitely has its moments. And it's the same if you Google ghost, quite often you get the rock band.
Yeah, right?
You got to sift through that.
I found that too, and what's interesting to me though, when you think about ghosts and entertainment, is predominantly, yes, horror, right? Stuff that scares the bejesus out of you, Haunting on Hill House, the Conjuring movies. Last time my daughter was up, her and we really liked that, the scary movie kind of stuff. We watched this excellent movie. God, I want to call it, I want to say Deep Water. No, it's not that, but it was a movie about a spirit who had existed in this well, and that later a community was built over top of this natural spring. And
it was like Dark Water or something like that with Jennifer Connelly.
That's the one. Yeah, and it was in her pool.
Yeah,
that was cool. But like scary. But I find it so funny that ghosts also invade children's media in a happy way too. Like you think Casper the Ghost comes to mind right off the get-go. But my personal favorite was the old Nickelodeon show Danny Phantom. Right?
I don't think I've ever seen Danny Phantom.
Oh, it was great. Like this, it's about this kid, and if I remember correctly, it's like an accident happens at a lab, and it turns him into. He has the ability to shift between living and phantom. Ooh. Like goes between human and ghost. So he becomes this conduit superhero that fights bad ghosts and stops people from doing things with his phantom powers.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually. No, I wish I'd seen Danny Phantom.
It's really good. Like the animation was fantastic. The voice acting was fantastic. It's one of those things that was up there, with like Johnny Test on Sundays to watch with my kid while he was growing up. But it's funny how many happy ghost things there are. Like when I think of Ghostbusters, I think of children's shows and the old cartoons on the weekends. Red Drum,
Oh yeah. Well, there's Oh crap! I had it in my head and it just evaporated. My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, the Studio Ghibli. Actually, a lot of his have to do with ghosts or spirits in some way, shape, or form, and they're not scary stories by any stretch.
Yeah, and the boy in the blue heron too,
Yeah.
right? But a lot that again goes into. I think there are a lot of those are like yokai, right? Like that spirit guide thing,
Yeah, totally, 100%. So you're right. Ghosts have basically invaded, for lack of a better word, all forms of entertainment. You could think of two Clint Eastwood westerns, High Plains Drifter and Pale Rider.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's questionable if he is not a spirit of vengeance that's come back. The best westerns are very mythological, and you can't have mythology without spirits, right? I mean, the whole bit with Preacher and Pale Rider. Mm-hmm. Then you aren't sure until like the very end when he squares off against the gunmen that are brought in to kill him, and the one guy looks at him and just kind of goes, "You."
Yeah, right.
I killed you, and then he draws a gun and shoots him. I mean, so their ghosts show up in very different forms as well in entertainment.
Yeah, and always again going back to the same things we discussed last week, where a lot of it is unsettled, or think of The Sixth Sense, right?
Oh yeah, which is like one of the best ghost movies ever made.
That reveal at the end with his ring falling off and rolling away just still blows my mind to this day. But again, unfulfilled, right? Something not met.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how like so many of much of what we talked about in part one comes to play in these movies. Like we mentioned, like A Christmas Carol in the first part, which is a classic ghost story.
Oh yeah,
but
the classic ghost story.
It is, but it has all the tropes we've come to expect. And what's interesting, like people associate ghosts more with Halloween, obviously.
All Hallows Eve.
But traditionally, Christmas time was a time to gather in front of the fire and tell scary stories or ghost stories. It was Christmas ghosts are a thing. The candle in the window so that the spirit can find its way home for Christmas. Like all that kind of comes into play.
And I wonder too how much of that has to do with like the Holy Ghost in Christianity.
Oh, I'm sure that's got to come into it in some way, shape, or form. Even though Christianity. Anyways, we could get into a whole bunch of stuff with that.
It's like I said, this rabbit hole, man, Pandora's box. But I think for me, my favorite ghost properties in pop culture have to do with like, I don't want to sound like I'm a masochist here, but like horrible ways in which people bite it. like off the top of my head, one of my favorite ghost related properties of all time was a video game series called The Suffering. Did you ever play that?
I never did. No.
Oh, so the whole premise of this is you're a prisoner and you get sent to this like Alcatraz style island, and it's almost got this Todd McFarlane / Cthulhu orgasm mythos behind it or whatever. But this prison on this planet on this island, was just horrible. They did horrible things there, like unspeakable things to people. And throughout the whole game, you're going batshit insane because you go down a hallway and there's the door. And you go to turn towards the door, and then all of a sudden you see something horrible, flashes the screen a couple times, and your character's standing against a wall. Like there was never a door there, right? Like it just messes with you. But all of the ghosts and the things that you fight throughout that game are prisoners or residents of that island who over time were murdered in absolutely horrific experiments. Like there's a big bloated dude who belches rats.
Oh man.
Because he was thrown into a cave. There's a guy that's electrocuted and stuff, right? And it also, the movie wise, it makes me think of the movie 13 Ghosts.
Yeah.
Which fascinated me, that idea that you could capture ghosts and plug them into some arcane, unfathomable machine that draws on their energy somehow, right?
That's a crazy, especially that's the remake, isn't it? The one where the house is made of glass, where it's like a whole.
Yeah. It's like a puzzle box, or
that was actually pretty good. There was a whole series they remade, like House on Haunted Hill, and then they did a couple other ones as well. And I think that's like what you're talking about there, the horrible ways to die, because that is like we talked about in part one. That is kind of what has traditionally been associated with ghosts and why they're still here, is they were murdered or some injustice was done, so they're sticking around.
Especially very much in Eastern culture, like Japanese ghost culture.
Well, and then I could say like one of the best is The Grudge, both the Japanese one and then even the American remake with Sarah Michelle Gellar, I thought was exceptional, and one of the few legitimately terrifying horror movies.
Yes, the horse on the ferry. Oh,
No, that's The Ring. That's The Ring.
Right? Yeah, I get them confused.
Well, because they came out back to back, basically, right? But just the noise that kid made, like the cat yowl because he was drowned in the tub with his cat, and the choking noise that the woman makes still sticks with me, right? It's just
Yeah. Those movies, for some reason, I always get them confused. Which one is the one with the kid coming? That's The Grudge, right? Where the white dress, black hair comes out of the TV backwards.
That's The Ring.
Yeah.
That's The Ring.
Okay.
Which I remember watching The Ring that first time when she starts coming out of the TV, and I remember everyone just losing their minds in the theater, like, what is going on?
Right. Such a poltergeist moment. Hey?
Yeah. Oh, and there's another one, Poltergeist,
sure.
which is, I think, again, it's a classic horror movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it kind of bridges the gap between zombies and ghosts, but like Pet Sematary.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, right? Because it's kind of coming. They're kind of spirits, but they're not. Like, because they go to burial ground, an ancient Indian burial ground.
Yeah.
But they do come back more as animated dead.
Yeah. Some kind of like voodoo thing, right?
Yeah, something kind of like that. I mean, which I think you could call that ghost adjacent, is what the terminology would be nowadays.
Ghost adjacent. We're marketing that.
That's ours. Anyone tries to use that, they started right here first, and you owe us a boatload of money.
Trademark Ghost Echoes of Fear podcast.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's funny to think that you can have in pop culture these stories and games and shows that are aimed at children that are happy-go-lucky, ghosty type things, and then you can have things that are, like the most terrifying things you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's interesting how they've sort of taken that. Because if you think about it, like most kids are scared of ghosts, right? But to use it in an entertaining way, they make it into this cutesy, like you mentioned, Casper the Friendly Ghost. That just shows, I think, how clever people who are making this stuff is, right? They know how to take something that's kind of scary, so you're a bit apprehensive about it. But what kid, like, having grown up in the era like of the video store where you'd kind of wander the store and see these boxes, you just wanted to rent the movie because, you so want, but your parents wouldn't let you, which made you want to watch it even more. So you knew that when you were at an unsupervised sleepover, you were going to watch all that stuff. So these people are super smart in the marketing of that, especially to kids. And like when the Ghostbusters cartoon was on Saturday mornings for quite a while, there's some stuff in there that was borderline pretty scary for a kid's show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and let's talk about the elephant in the room too, and let's give mad prompts to Nintendo. You know what I mean? Think about the haunted mansions in the old Super Mario games.
Yeah,
you walk in and there are these cute little bubbly ghosts with their cute little faces, but as soon as you turn your back on them, they're like, and the whole time you've got that haunting.
Oh God, yeah, the music,
right? You know what I mean? And then what do they do later? They come out with Luigi's Mansion, and it's like, hey, let's make Luigi a Ghostbuster with a vacuum cleaner, right?
But again, they know people are going to eat that up, right?
Just absolute masters of like taking young kids and getting them into the fear of ghosts.
Well, and speaking of video games, we talked about this on a previous one, but the whole Dark Pictures anthology is very much, I mean, they're horror, so they're not all ghost stories, but if the fair share of spirits have turned up in a few of them.
Yeah, and this time I'm going to remember Little Hope right off the bat.
Little Hope. That is, I think that is their ghost game, basically.
It's debatable whether it's ghosts, though, because it kind of really leans heavily into demons, right?
True.
But... well, I don't.
Are demons ghosts though?
Yeah. Spoiler alert: if you're wanting to play the game, skip the next 10 seconds. But if you get the certain endings in that game, it heavily leans towards the fact that they're regrets. They're personified regrets for the guy that caused all of their deaths. Right.
Okay, gotcha. You can now start listening again, folks.
We're good now. Spoilers over.
Yeah. But they're I think modern versions of like really good ghosty supernatural kind of paranormal games, right? It's just everywhere. Comic books, like there's the whole Eerie series, like the old EC comics, like Eerie and House of I think there's even House of Ghosts. You know what I mean?
Well, and DC's Constantine character deals
Yeah.
with ghosts and the undead all the time, demons and all that. There's also a DC character. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but he literally is a ghost, and he frequently
Dead Man.
Dead Man. Thank
Man,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, he was in that animated movie with the Dark Justice League.
Yeah, with Constantine. And
Yeah.
I think Dr. Fate was in it too, or something
Yeah,
like that.
and Swamp Thing,
Swamp
who's like
Thing,
my
yeah.
favorite DC character of all time.
Which is not a ghost.
No, not a ghost. Not a ghost. Not a ghost. No.
But I mean, yeah, there's another in comic books, right? Like they've been used
Yeah.
quite a bit. Batman would sometimes have quasi supernatural, advantage. His whole thing is based on fear. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just it. He uses fear against his criminals as his whole shtick, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, how many times has Batman been referred to as a phantom? Or
Oh,
something?
many times. And and then there's like you go back to like almost 100 years ago with a lot of the popular characters in like the pulp fiction stories, like the Shadow, the Phantom,
yeah.
the Spirit. Like it all tied into that ghostly. The naming is all very much indicative of spirits, and we're these people, and they kind of manifest out of the dark and seek vengeance.
That's fascinating to me because now you've got me thinking, how many times have humans in history tried to adopt the properties of the supernatural in order to have that element of fear in the real life against their enemies, like think ninjutsu.
Oh yeah, they're like they were supposed to be unseen, invisible phantoms.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, mind blown. There's another labyrinth for me to get lost in when I get home.
One of my favorite comic book characters was Moon Knight.
Oh.
Very much Egyptian, but he like the white costume with the cloak. He was very ghostly in appearance,
Yeah.
right? And he kind of
Like a
come out of
mummy.
it like a mummy, but he was like flying through the air with his cape would go out and all. He was like, when they made that Marvel series based on him, I was in my glory, man, because I'd waited my whole life to see that character like used well.
How did you like the series? Like personally, I think they did a fantastic job.
Me too, because he's been, I think out of all the comic book characters, he's been kind of rebooted so many times. First, he was just a vigilante. Then he did have kind of supernatural powers and this and that. So they took all those incarnations and made it work on screen. But what I liked is they kept the schizophrenic nature of who he is, which is important, which we're going off on a totally different tangent. But Moon Knight is like 4 different personalities in one person.
Yeah, just to end on the Moon Knight thing so we can get back on track. But my favorite part about it was when he went into his Moon Knight form, each of his personalities had a different manifestation of the costume. I love that.
Yeah, they totally did with like, was it Mr. Knight was sort of more like the proper,
Suit.
the suit and everything. But then he had like the classic Moon Knight costume,
Hood up. Yeah.
which they used very sparingly. But when they used it was just awesome.
Yeah, and man, I like where do we even go from here? Like I mean, you get in. I liked ghost stories and all sorts of things. I love the ghost stories in Supernatural. All the episodes in Supernatural where they deal with ghosts, especially the ghost virus episode where Dean's infected and he's finding everything funny. He laughs all the and scared. Or no, he's scared of everything. He opens that locker and the cat and he just screams like a girl. It's so scary. Well, like that. Where do you know? Because it just came to mind. But where did that idea that iron can harm specters? Where did that come from? Is it just a product of that show?
It's a product of that show, but it's taken from some bit of lore. But I've never, ever experienced anyone saying use iron against ghosts, that it'll work. It's like one of those many offshoots. I think because no one really knows what ghosts are, it's easy to come up with. It's not like, where you've got like a monster, like a werewolf. Okay, fine, silver has an impact. You know what I mean? But silver's a common theme amongst a lot of paranormal stuff anyways. Silver, metal, that it can be used against it.
Something, yeah. And I think that has to do with rarity and like scarcity. If the only thing that can harm something is hard to find, then
It's scarier because,
vampires, who's got a wooden stake and garlic? Psh, everybody.
grab a broom handle,
Just,
smack it off, and it
break a
works.
leg off your chair.
Yeah. So what was, like, as a kid, what was sort of the thing ghost related that first captivated your attention, Kenton? Like, what really kind of got you? I mean, other than like the video games and stuff like that, what was the one time where you were kind of like, oh, maybe this isn't just an entertainment, but but it was in the entertainment realm.
Okay, well, anecdote time. So we'll get into some personal anecdotes here, but so when I was a kid growing up, I lived on this big ranch that was owned by a really close friend of our family. They had a kid who was the same age as me. We spent all of our time together. Their house was haunted by a poltergeist. They told us about it all the time. They said they had all these weird things would happen to them all the time, and they had this massive crawl space beneath their house. And my best friend Nick and I were down there one day looking for something. Can't remember what it was. I think it was a box of his comic books that his mom put away or something. I don't know.
Would you put it in the crawl space?
Yeah.
How mean.
Well, they I don't think they were his. I think it was like old ones of hers or something. I can't remember. But I don't remember why we were there. But I remember distinctly what happened while we were there. And we're in this crawl space. We're shining a flashlight around. And we come across this back wall. And near the back wall was a guitar case. Just kind of in the dirt, propped up against the concrete, right? And we swept across it with the flashlight, and of course, beam of light in the pitch black darkness down there and stuff. And as we were sweeping across the rest of the room, we started hearing music. We heard like strumming, and we're like, whoa, the hair. I think we were maybe 8, 9 at the time. We were quite young. So back across the room with the flashlight. Flashlight gets the guitar case is open.
That's awesome.
And so we look at each other and we're like, is this fucking really happening? Like, is someone else down here? And we're flashing the flashlight around. And as we're like fixating on this guitar case, boom, one of the strings vibrates, and we never ever went in the crawl space again. To this day, just nope.
That's brilliant. That would be enough to set one on a course in life right there, yeah. Right?
So I think that was the first ghost story that ever actually occurred to me that I remember.
That's really good. That's a good one too. Well, you'll never forget that.
No. No. And to this day, like, I attribute some of my bathophobia and my claustrophobia probably to that event, like seeing pitch blackness through the lens of a small tube of light. Right.
Yeah. No, that even the image of that's something that'd be like in a horror movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like in some video, like the Dark Pictures anthologies, see the whole world through the screen light.
That almost reminds me, like, remember in The Conjuring when their daughter is kind of wandering around and she's in the one room and there's the rocking chair and then the spirit is holding Annabelle, and then it's scary enough as it is and the girl's trying to get out and then Annabelle slowly turns and looks at her.
Oh,
that's like one of the most frightening, terrifying moments I've seen in any movie ever. And that kind of that'd show up in a Conjuring film, that experience.
Oh yeah. There's not much that terrifies me more than inanimate objects animating themselves.
like a guitar.
And we're not talking about a short distance either. Like, it wasn't 10 feet away from us. It was probably 30, 35 feet. It was the other side of this crawl space beneath a 5-bedroom house on like this old farmstead.
That's awesome. My first one, I've told this many, many times when I've been interviewed on different shows, etc. But when I was 5, and I'm 52, so do the math. Like how long ago that was. I remember it clearly. I was in the back of my mom's car. We were parked on the side of the road here in Kamloops on Brentwood Avenue, which is where I grew up. But we were picking up a friend of mine, Johnny Goodwin. He was going to sleep over. And I'm in the back, and it was a Gremlin. Remember those horrible cars, the Gremlin?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was like the big Pinto, early version Pinto.
Big swept fastbacks.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Hatchbacks. It was purple, too, which was even worse. You know what? This is an aside. Before I came along, my mom owned a 67 Mustang. Yeah, and she gave that up so she get a purple Gremlin because it'd be easier to carry a kid seat in. Later, I was like, who fucking cares? It's a 67 Mustang. But I digress. Yeah. So I'm waiting in the back. My mom goes up to the house because she's talking to my friend's mom and was just going to go get him. I don't know why I stayed in the car, but I just did. And I remember looking around out the back, and the street is completely empty. There's no one walking around. There's no one on the street. And suddenly, in the hatchback, about as far away as you are from me, which is what, 2.5 feet, this face appears.
Whoa.
Just woof, appears. And it's not a normal face. It's like a mongoloidous Jason Voorhees without the hockey mask face. It's there. It pops in. I have enough time to like freak out, and then it vanishes. It just vanishes as quickly as it shows up. And I hit the floor of the Gremlin until I hear footsteps show up, and it's my buddy. And I'm like, did you see someone hanging around like the back of the car? He's like, no, there's no one around, man. It's just, you're the only one here. And so you weren't looking around? And he's like, no. And my mom comes up, and I told that to her, and she's just like, there's no one here. You just imagine that. But no, I saw that face basically not even materialize, because materialize assumes that it's just going to slowly come in.
Yeah.
It was like
Just there.
it's like almost like someone jumping out and going boo, and then jumping back.
No.
And that set it off for me. And then from there, I got hooked on, remember the original show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and then all that kind of stuff just started, Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, and then later on Sightings, which came out. And that kind of that's where I kind of started getting read every book I could, and it just went from there.
See, and it's funny. First off, I didn't want to interrupt your story, but this is why I hate capitalism, man. My mom's first car was a 67 Corvette Stingray. Like, screw
that is like the best
world.
car on the planet. What the hell?
I know. She's got pictures of it, and I'm like, what happened to it? She's like, oh, we sold it when we married your dad. And I'm like,
why would you do that?
Well, then they bought a Camaro, which they also sold when I was born.
Oh. People are stupid.
Oh, man.
Like, I never let my mom forget the Mustang. Like, well, what car did you have before you got me, Mom? Oh, I got a 67 Mustang. Why'd you get rid of it? Because we couldn't fit the stroller in it. Who cares? Dad drives a pickup truck. It's fine.
You could have put that thing in a barn and it would have been worth it.
Anyways.
And then they give a shit about our toys. You better keep your toys.
No. Not mine. Mine made me sell all my toys, and I'm really resentful about that years later.
Yeah, I dropped a cinder block on most of my Masters of the Universe.
That was
sad.
Not smart.
No, they would have been worth so much money.
So much money. So. Anyways.
But, the one thing I wanted to say is for me, after that ghost experience, the things that we had with the poltergeist, and I knew what a poltergeist was at an extremely young age, because after, we come crying out of the basement in that story I said, that's what they sat down and they said, there's this ghost. They don't want to hurt us. They just want to let us know it's there. Blah, blah, blah. They told us that it was called a poltergeist, etc. But my mom was she sheltered me a little bit from horror media. So the first scary movie I ever watched was Tremors. And I think I was like 13, 14.
That's such a good movie.
Yeah, it was really good. I love the scene in the basement with all the guns.
Oh, man. Yeah. I just remember because they come through and they're shooting and then they go to the wall, like the camera pans to the wall. And I just laughed so hard because I wish I had that in my basement.
Oh, yes, it's just, you broke into the wrong house.
Didn't you?
But so my ghost experience when I was growing up as a kid, all of my exposure to it and my knowledge of it literally came from my friends, and specifically my native friends, my First Nations friends. So when I was a kid growing up, I was like the part of the Holy Trinity, we called ourselves. There was me, there was my best friend Nick, and my other best friend Sheldon Eustache, who's unfortunately sadly passed. But Sheldon lived up in Chuchua, which was a nearby reservation. And he would come down to our house all the time for weekends, and we would read comic books, collect comic books, draw comic books, write comic books, like play video games, watch crazy movies on VHS. But other times I would go up to his place on the reserve, and I'd spend the weekend up there with him and his mom and his family. And oral tradition is alive and well in First Nations. And I've got a friend, Gerald, that I've been talking to on Facebook, who's really interested in maybe coming on our podcast one day. And if that's an opportunity for us, I would love to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This guy, he's very into his culture and travels all over North America, visits tribal elders and shares. He runs TikTok, just really cool guy. But anyways, they would tell me all their ghost stories and stuff, and the abandoned church in the middle of the reserve there that nobody ever went near because there was ghost nun figures in the windows and stuff, just wild.
Well, and that's such a good way to kind of get that early education into the ghost story, because they're among the best storytellers for one thing.
Yeah.
And again, as we talked about in part one, ghosts, spirits are a huge part of their culture just naturally. They don't run from them. They have usually traditionally the tribes would have a shaman who that was their whole point, and they're well revered religious figures within their community because they would communicate with the dead for guidance or to help fight enemies or to get rid of spirits they didn't want around, right? So I wish I'd never had that as growing up, even though we had a cabin on reserve land out at Little Shuswap. But yeah, it's something that I didn't really get exposed to till far later in life.
Yeah. And it's sad because in 1996, when I was almost graduating high school, I think it was about grade 11, I was kind of going down a dark path. I was getting into drugs. I was skipping school, doing all sorts of stupid stuff. And my mom came to me and said, you know what? You're out, you're leaving, you're going to Nanaimo to live with your dad. And away I went, and I had this massive culture shock of going from this tiny high school to this big high school in Nanaimo. But the unfortunate fact and why I bring that story up is I lost contact with all of my First Nations friends. I lost contact with all of them. And then years later, I'm moved back here and I'm trying to reignite so many of those contacts, and I'm finding it hard because, like, with Sheldon and his brother, they both passed on and stuff. But again, like, call it what you will, and I don't think this is cultural appropriation in any way, shape, or form, but I feel like he's here with me because so many of the things I'm doing are things that he cheered me on for, right?
Yeah.
Like
100%.
finding my potential, writing, entertaining. Right?
Telling stories.
Telling stories.
Right? I think, no, that's not a cultural misappropriation at all. Anyone that claims that it is can go F themselves as far as I'm concerned. And I think a good note to end this episode on, in the comments or on our Facebook page, tell us your ghost story if you want, or are you scared of ghosts or anything like that? Let us know. We'd love to hear your stories. Next week, Kenton, we're going to dive into the little nice segue into monsters.
Yeah. Next week, we're going to get into the fear of cryptids. There's a couple different names for it, so I'm not even going to try to attempt either of them right now. We'll let you know what they are next week. But we're going to get into the fear of, like, cryptids and supernatural monsters.
I think that'll be good, like the Mothman and Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, Ogopogo. We're going to talk
Ogopogo. So until then, I'm Jason.
And I'm Kenton.
Sleep with the light on tonight, perhaps.
Yeah.